All right, now we're recording. What is up, guys? Welcome back. I hope that you're having a phenomenal week. Things here.
This time we're for real.
Yeah, this time we're for real. I promise. My name is Chris. I'm a Green Beret medic, a husband, and a father.
And I'm Pastor Eric, and that makes me also a Bible teacher, but I am still a student of God's Word.
Absolutely. My father, actually.
And a son that I'm very proud of.
I really appreciate that. All right, coming at you guys this week, we're going to be talking about the Dunning-Kruger Effect. What is it? Why should you care? I'm going to let you know why. We're going to cover the latest headlines and who's who and what's new. Things got spicy this week, but really, it's just kind of par for the course at this point. We're learning how to deal with it, is what it is.
You mean like a red hot chili pepper kind of spicy?
I'm thinking more like a ghost pepper. So things are getting spicy. And then we're going to be talking about Eli and how not to high priest.
Yeah, that would be an accurate statement right there.
All right. And also how not to father, because I'm sure that's going to come into the story as well, right?
Absolutely. Big part of the story.
All right. Well, I'm excited. I'm ready to get into it. Are you ready to get into it?
I'm ready to do this. Let's kick this pig.
All right. Here we go. All right, guys, we're going to jump right into the big idea. And for the big idea this week, I want to talk about what's called the Dunning-Kruger Effect. Really quick, before we get off to the races, just do a little bit of housekeeping. We're trying something new this week. Instead of doing like 3 little 10-minute, real quick, fast, digestible sections, I'm going to start doing some more long-form podcasting. The episodes are going to be a little longer. You're still going to get the same 3 segments that you're used to: the big idea, who's who, what's new, and the keeping the main thing, or our Bible study on the end. But we're going to squish them together, as it were, into one big episode to drop on YouTube. And then I'm going to pull the clips off. I'm going to drop them over on Instagram for you guys, just to give you a little bit of, just to whet your appetite, But hopefully I want to bring you guys back over here to either Spotify or YouTube, Apple Podcasts, some of the podcast platforms, so that you can enjoy more of our longer form episodes. And to be honest with you, we were having an issue condensing our thoughts, because we have a lot of big thoughts in these little heads of ours, and condensing our big thoughts into those little 10-minute episodes. I wasn't really enjoying rushing through the topics that we were covering that quickly. So that being said, I may even go back as we're doing these longer form episodes and rehash some of the topics that we touched on once before, so we can really flush them out. If there's anything that we missed or that we rushed through before that you guys want us to go back and really dig into and flesh out, by all means, drop it down in the comments. Let us know
give us some comments.
What topics that you want us to go back and recover. All right. That was the housekeeping issue. Now, runners, take your marks. Kaboom, we're off to the races. So
here we go.
The Dunning-Kruger Effect. Have you ever heard of it?
No.
Okay. Well, lucky for you, I have the power of the internet at the tips of my fingers, and it looks a little bit something like this. So this is the Dunning-Kruger Effect. As you can see, basically represented on this line graph, you have down here competence on your x-axis. Is that correct? Did I get that right? X-axis. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then the y-axis here, you have your confidence. So basically, the Dunning-Kruger effect represents the true competence of a person over time in relationship to their confidence in performing a certain task. I'm going to break that down for those of you that maybe 3-syllable words were just a little bit too much. It's the idea that when you start doing a thing, you don't know how to do it very well. As you learn how to do a thing, your confidence in doing that thing shoots way up super
Right.
fast
Right.
until you hit a point where all of a sudden, and this is what I really want to talk about and why I think it's important for us to understand, until you realize that you don't know what you don't know. And then your perceived confidence in doing a thing falls way off down to what's an appropriate level, and then rises with your competence in doing that task. I'll take you back to the chart and I'll explain what I mean. Let's say that you are a pilot and you're learning how to fly an airplane. You start down here at know nothing. I do not know how to fly this airplane. Then, this represents me knowing how to fly an airplane or being good at it. And this represents me being confident in flying that airplane or feeling good that I know what I'm doing, right? So as you start learning to fly that airplane, your confidence is going to shoot up, especially the first time maybe you get it up off the ground. It gives you, the training pilot gives you the stick for the first time. These are your ailerons. Go ahead and dip the wings. Go ahead and dip the nose, rise the nose. All right, all that stuff. You do it. Your confidence shoots up. This represents this isn't that hard, right?
Yeah, you haven't had a crosswind yet.
However, that's where I'm going. However, notice where your actual competence is. How much you actually know about flying the airplane is very, very little. All right?
All right. All right.
Here at this point, the peak of Mount Stupid, this is where I love the way that they labeled this chart. This represents the first time that pilot in our current scenario, our metaphor here, you said hits the crosswind. I would say it's the first time the pilot experiences that come to Jesus or oh crap moments.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So this is all of a sudden you realize
the landing gear is not coming down.
Right. Something, they encounter the issue that they've never encountered before. And then as you'll notice, all of a sudden, I realize that I don't know what I don't know. And for pilots, if any of you guys that are pilots out there, check me on this, but I want to say the danger zone is around under 10,000 hours or something like that, or right around there. I've heard it said, because you have enough hours under your belt, again, for your confidence to be way up here, but you haven't really experienced any of those really scary things that can happen in the air that let you know that you don't know what you don't know. But then as you can see, once you hit that first oh crap moment, your confidence falls back down here to what's a more appropriate level, commiserate to your actual level of skill in performing this task, in this case, flying an airplane. Mm-hmm. Then, as you track forward from there, now I realize I don't know what I don't know. Then your competence and your confidence start rising together at an appropriate rate. And then over here, this represents somebody that is truly a master of their craft.
Okay.
Right? So, did I explain that?
You gave me
enough?
I got a good understanding and lots of examples.
Right. So I gave my example with flying the airplane. You go ahead and dive into yours that you.
But mine are all personal. I don't know that you want me to go there.
Okay, moving right along.
Because they involve you.
You know what? Free fire zone, man. It's full send.
You think so?
Yeah, I got thick skin.
Okay. Little green tracker.
Yeah. Yep.
Do you know where I'm going?
Oh yeah. I rolled that bad boy.
that's the one.
Yeah.
And I told you
full send
that please don't. That thing is horrible in snow. The width to length ratio is not right in them. They tip on dry ground. They're worse in snow and ice.
You remember that? Remember that episode of VeggieTales? They tip over. Trackers do that. Geo trackers, guys.
Geo tracker. And I said to you, be careful. Don't play around in that thing. It's dangerous. The only thing that I remember about that is I wasn't the one who got the phone call that it got tipped.
Yeah, weird about that, huh?
Yeah, yeah, so but anyway, but now it's not nearly a similar
I think
situation.
everybody can appreciate if you've got two people to call to bail you out of a situation. The one guy that told you not to do what you were doing that gets you into that situation. If you have an option between A and B, I'm gonna go with the guy that didn't
Who you gonna call?
specifically tell me not to do the thing that I got caught doing. Right? That's what happened.
Yeah,
That's what happened. That's
yeah,
how that story unfolded.
that's how it ends. But I had many hours on a motorcycle, many miles, many hours. Very very good driver, and I had put one down before, and had traffic issues and have been able to maneuver in and out of them. But on one particular night, doing 35 miles an hour, I had a lady that, with a light misting rain going on outside, she ran a stop sign, and I put the bike down. And I've never put a bike down like that. I fishtailed with it because of the wet that was on the road, and it felt like it was going over on my left, and I pulled hard on the right, and I ended up pulling the bike down on myself, and I hit the ground so hard my head, wearing a helmet, head bounced off the ground. Later I found that helmet was cracked. So it did what it was supposed to do for me. And the bike goes scooting off and from between my legs and just goes sliding on its crash bars. And as it goes through I had just filled it up, and the air hole that's on the gas cap, I can see gas coming out of it, and sparks are flying at the same time as it's going away from me. And I'm just going, no. And it was like it was in slow motion, but it wasn't. Um, it took me the longest time to be able to ride a bike in the rain again, without just tensing up. And yeah, that became a situation for me. And I learned something about that. And I always thought that I was good at being incredibly a defensive driver. My senses became even way more heightened than that. I got some internal bruising. I learned what that's all about, and how long that can hurt afterwards. um, and I didn't
That's where
realize
your
about
that's where
that.
your love affair with ibuprofen began.
Uh, um,
Ranger
I
candy,
can,
baby.
yeah, I can identify. You just be sitting there, and you would go, and all of a sudden your chest, oh, that hurts.
Yeah.
I can't do that. Yeah. So that's the first time that I'd learned that. Um, yeah, I didn't know what I didn't know. I mean, I'd learned to put a bike down and all that, but there's a difference between putting a bike down and being in a situation where you're not in control and you drop one. Um, learned a lot more respect for a bike after that.
Absolutely. So the why, right? Why am I bringing this up? Why am I talking about the Dunning-Kruger effect? Well, I'm going to tell you. Guys, I think that
All the stupid people in the world.
I think that humility is one of the marks of a true, mature, professional person. All right. Humility is incredibly important because it's going to keep you from these oh crap moments. I don't care who you are, what you do, how long that you've been doing it. There are, to quote Donald Rumsfeld, right, for anybody that remembers this speech back in the day, you have your known knowns, your known unknowns, and your unknown unknowns, which was his way of saying what I'm trying to tell you right now, which is, you can plan around what you know, and you can plan around what you know that you don't know. but you can't plan for what you don't know that you don't know. And there's a lot of people out there that aren't mature enough to admit that they don't know what they don't know. Or even worse, don't realize that there's stuff out there that they don't know, or things about this, this craft or this task that you're doing that they don't know. People are afraid of being wrong, is what I'm trying to get at.
Well, okay, so let's ferret this out just a little bit. There's a big difference between, and this is what you're going for. If you're going to talk about the humility of it, there's a big difference between going, and I think the word that we're looking for, the word that is opposite of humility, is not pride, it's arrogance
or hubris.
Well, I would prefer to say arrogance.
Sure.
More people are familiar with that word, is arrogance, because arrogance will propel you into doing all these things. There is a source, an instrument of pride in here, but it's arrogant not to say, I don't know. I don't know.
Absolutely.
And arrogance will run you into this. Well, let's see here. I think we know this, and I think that we know that, and so obviously this is the best situation that we got.
Yeah, obviously.
Isn't it now?
Well, when you put it like that.
Yes, and so we're going to run with it because I know. Whereas humility would at least stop and say, I got to go research this. Because I don't know. I can't give you an answer. I don't know how that is.
Yeah.
I can't give you advice. I don't know. And that's one of the things. We got lots of ministers and lots of priests and lots of preachers that love to tell people how that they should live their life. And that right there should be a huge red flag to people to say, run. If somebody's going to tell you how to live your life, run. They can give you principles, but that's about as good as it can get. Why? Because God's got a path for everybody that's individual. And there's just kind of this thing that God normally doesn't tell somebody else what your path is. So if you get somebody that knows what you should do, run. No, they don't.
There's a few points along the path that are similar for everybody. They're the same for everybody. Like the cross, for instance.
Granted.
Right?
The Ten Commandments.
But correct. But then above and beyond that, I agree with you. I agree with you.
Yeah. And so you need to be leery of people that go, oh man, here's one from the circles that I come from. This has been used, and it is such a crutch by people in order to have authority that does not belong to them. God told me.
Oh, did he now?
Was that an audible voice that you heard? I would really like to know how it came to you. The word of the Lord came to me. That should make people smile and run.
Yeah.
When people say that kind of stuff to you. There would, another one, if you got somebody that's working and doing counseling with you and whatever, and if they use this phrase, run, I know how you feel.
Oh, yeah. Don't say that. That's a trap.
That's a trap. They've never walked in your shoes. They've never been in your skin. They have no idea of exactly how you feel. They can share with you maybe similar experiences that they had and how they felt, but they're not in your skin. They have no idea how you feel.
Absolutely. So moving back over here to the chart, guys, humility. This is the big takeaway. If you take nothing else from this, this is what I want you guys to remember. There's two things that I'm trying to save you from. The first is this monumental fall right here of hitting this peak Mount Stupid and just falling way off down here because you didn't have the maturity or the humility to recognize that you didn't know what you didn't know. Staying humble will keep you on what the optimal path would look like, and that would just be trucking right along here so that your confidence and your competence in doing a thing rises together at an appropriate level. Or, and this might be even worse, because you're going to be that guy, you're going to be the emperor with no clothes on, guys, and everybody's going to be laughing at you. What could even be worse is you rocketing up here and your confidence in doing a thing just continues to sail, but you never actually get any better at it. And you just continue to sail and don't even recognize that you're doing stupid stuff so that you can fall back down, because then you'll always be stuck over here. Like I said, the emperor with no clothes, but not really ever gaining any traction or competently performing the task that you're trying to accomplish at all. And that might be the worst, because everybody's going to be laughing at you and you're going to be that guy that is just too arrogant to even admit that you're wrong.
Here's a truth that I don't know if they put in there or not, but it is true. In that particular diagram, the greater the rise, the farther the fall.
Absolutely, and you come crashing, guys. That you punched me right in the feel bads with that one. I have had some meteoric falls in my life, and it's because I wasn't willing to admit that I was wrong or see what I was doing that was wrong, and man, I fell flat on my face because of it.
Well, here's maturity. And you talked about, you used the word maturity. Here's maturity. You can't, there's always going to be things that you don't know. That causes being blindsided. One of the things that God has used on me is I hate being blindsided. I hate it. So it is in my nature to try and discover everything that I possibly can in order to take away being blindsided, because I hate it. I can't begin to tell you how bad I hate being blindsided, not being able to see something coming. I didn't see it. I didn't recognize it. I was oblivious to the signs.
Well,
whatever
having
that
a pathological
what it
need to be in control is its own blight.
It's not about the control. It's about not seeing it
I'm
coming.
just poking some fun at you.
Because the one thing that I have learned is seeing it coming, I may not have control, but I can get out of the way.
Sure.
I
know what you meant.
I can avoid, I can delay, I can, get around, whatever, as long as I can see it. That thing that crashes into you from over here, the blind spot, and just boom, and just nails you. Oh, I hate it. I hate it. I've had a few of those in my life, and it has been my aim in life to actually negate all of those that I possibly can.
Not a bad way to live. Hey, I hope that you guys enjoyed the big idea this week. I hope the Dunning-Kruger effect, I hope that made sense to you. And I hope that you were able to take something away from this that you can apply to your own life, and it'll help you become more successful as you're moving forward. That's the point of these big ideas that I have. Just trying to help you guys. I'm sharing things from my life where I get the bulk of these is because these are things that I've messed up. And so that's where I get this ammunition from.
Geo trackers.
Yeah. Thanks for that. to share with you guys. So, hey, if you guys like the video, please leave it a thumbs up. If you got anything or you want to, if you agree, if you disagree, you want to correct us, you want to tell us that we're way off base, hey, light us up in the comments below. I dare you, please. I read every single one of those things. And when we respond to you guys, that's really me responding to you. So please let us know. Make sure that you subscribe, make sure that you follow, and I hope that you guys are sticking around for the keeping the main thing, and the who's who and what's new, because we still have the headlines coming up, and our Bible's biggest screw up this week, Eli, and how not to priest. So
that's a good title.
We'll see you guys over there.
See you there.
All right, moving right along, we are going to dive into who's who and what's new this week. And I gotta say, things are getting spicy out there.
Yes, we talked about that. You called this a ghost pepper kind of thing.
Yeah, it really is. There's a couple of stories that are really. This week was trying to come up with like one word to describe it. If I had to come up with one word, I would say surprised. Like I was genuinely surprised by some of the stories that I grabbed out this week. And that's coming from somebody that I kind of pride myself on not being able to be surprised anymore. But we got some big ones. So just going to let you guys know, like I do every single week, we have not cross-talked these. We haven't shop-talked these. I went out and I found what was trending today. Nabbed the ones that are the most interesting to me, and I'm going to throw them up here, and we are going to talk about it. All right, so right out the gate, I think this is kind of like what started the week. This was the big hubbub. This is what everybody was talking about. So here from the Hill, we have Nashville mayor orders investigation after leak of school shooters writing. So to catch you up on this story, you got, let me hold on. I'm gonna do something here really quick. All right. Boom. We're turning off the countdown this week, so I just wanted to go back so nobody's confused by that. All right, cool. So moving right ahead. Do you know who Steven Crowder is?
Yes.
Okay, so Steven Crowder, pretty big on YouTube. For those of you guys that don't know, if you subscribe to my channel and you're not subscribed to his, haha, take that, Crowder.
Is he still doing Louder with Crowder?
Yeah, that's his main bit for sure. So he's actually recently started an undercover journalism section to his growing media empire, I'm going to call it. And those guys really hit one out of the park this week. They were able to get a hold of 3 pages from the manifesto of the individual that shot up that Christian school in Nashville, about 8 months ago, killed 6, 3 adults, 3 children. I cannot condemn in stronger terms how much of a garbage human being I think this person is. I would even go as far to say that if you are able to cold-heartedly look down the barrel of a weapon and gun down innocent children, that's demonic in my account, right? Because in order to, it just is, man. That
the severance of conscience that you have to have in order to do that kind of thing is definitely beyond the pale of a personality disorder.
Beyond the pale. That was a good way to say
beyond the pale.
So anyway, Crowder was able to get a hold of 3 pages anonymously sourced to him, and he published them. Made quite a stir. Some of the writings that came out of this manifesto tracked right along with what you would expect from somebody that shot up a predominantly white suburban Christian school. So the writing, I'm not going to show them here to you guys.
Check your mic.
Is it Am I good?
Buzzing.
Oh, is it buzzing a little bit?
There, you're
How
good.
about now? All right, cool. Thank you for that. All right, cool. So, YouTube, Google, all of the legacy media immediately started censoring the story, started pulling it down. Any posts that had these pages portrayed in them started getting pulled down. And it was very easy to see right away that there was a narrative that was being challenged, and the powers that be did not want you, the people, to see what was written in there. I'll let you go out and do the research to find it yourself. It's still posted all over the place.
Yeah, once Crowder did it, people grabbed it, and the story that caught my attention to how I even got a hold of it was that Meta. We all know who Meta used to be, right?
It's Facebook, right?
Facebook. Okay. I just wanted to make sure when I say that. But Meta, if it was posted on Meta, they took it down.
Yes.
They wouldn't let it be shown. But other people grabbed it and it went up on other formats. And so good job by all those other people that very quickly realized that we have entities that want that information squashed.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the biggest part of this story that I think is the biggest pull out of this story, is just how much they want this information censored. They don't want it to get out. It is very damaging to the narrative. Suffice it to say, the shooter was very forthright about the fact that they targeted a school. They were very forthright, specific about the fact that they were targeting Christians, that they were targeting white people. That was very evident. And very specific about the fact that they were targeting a structure that they hoped did not have sufficient security to rebuff their attack. All of that was in there.
Also showed how long it took to plan.
Yep.
And took the we have people that are at different levels of being a believer in God, in Jesus Christ, that tune in and watch us. And I think, but every one of them have a level of understanding of decency and how God wants us to treat our fellow human beings. In his manifesto, he also...
Now you guys are gonna be mad at me, but
no, I'm going straight for it.
It was a
then.
chick.
If you're going to do that, then I'm doing the
well.
it thing.
Really quick inject into what you're saying. That became part of the narrative, is that the person was a female that said that they were a male and that they were transitioning to a male. But then after
Correct.
their death, shot by police during the incident, nobody knew what to call this person, because in her own manifesto, she signed her writings with her quote unquote dead name, is what they'll say it, but the name that she grew up with.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Which is not the masculine name of the identity that she was trying to and it was funny watching people mentally jump through the gymnastics of like, well, how are we supposed to handle this? We don't know.
Yeah,
it's because
ridiculous.
They were mentally ill.
Ridiculous. But where I'm going with it is the idea that our listeners and decent humanity will pick up very quickly on the idea of what true Christianity is, or at least have. We're all in that same box about how God feels about his creation and what he asks of each of us to have decency for our fellow person, our fellow created. And in that manifesto, it prays to God and says, help me to kill I'm almost got it at a quote, help me to kill as many as I can. That was a prayer that was actually in the manifesto.
I don't even know what to do with that. I don't even know what to do with that.
Not the first time that this kind of a thing has happened with that kind of a prayer. There was a guy who believed, this is back in the late 70s, he believed that an angel of light came to him and told him that he needed to kill a doctor that was doing abortions. And so he waited, he stalked the guy for a couple of weeks. They did some of the footage and could capture images of him around the outside. As much as I abhor
Abortion.
abortion, I'm not going to do this. I will pray against the guy. I will talk to the guy. I will ask God to do all kinds of things, but I know that God is not asking me to commit murder, because that's exactly one of his 10 commandments. Thou shalt not commit murder. So anyway, this guy stalked him, and the guy come walking out after hours. He met him in the rear parking lot and put 4 slugs in him, at about less than 10 feet out of a 357. Okay. And his defense was God told him to do it. Now, it's things like that that make the rest of us believers look just a little crazy.
Yeah, that's a black eye for sure on God's people.
Okay. But anybody that knows anything about Christianity will tell you that's not Christianity. And that's why it's so stinking demonic.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. To put an exclamation point on the end of this story and really emphasize how this whole thing is about the censorship of the issue after publishing these 3 pages, the mayor of Nashville has ordered an investigation, which now we're back around to where we started with the headline, has ordered an investigation into just how these pages were able to get leaked to Steven Crowder, and then breaking most recently, 7 officers from the Nashville PD have been put on leave, administrative leave, pursuant to that investigation. So tell me again, who's the bad guy in this story?
Okay, but let me ask you about ethics here, young man, because I'm sure that military or being in any type of that kind of a unit that has to do type of policing or that kind of a thing, where do your loyalties lie? How do you see it ethically? You have this information, but you're told, to keep it TS. I mean,
Right.
you've got information you've got to do that with, as close as you and I are, and we talk to each other about everything,
Nearly.
except the things that you can't.
Right.
What ethically? Where do you fall on that? I mean, explain that to us and your audience. I mean,
Yeah.
what's your measuring stick?
I mean, that's a really good question, and up till now, I would say that it's always been the understanding that what I'm doing is supporting and defending the Constitution of the United States, which is why it's so important. Historically, it has been so important to understand that your loyalties don't lie to a person. Your loyalty does not lie to the person that's sitting in the presidency of the United States in the Oval Office, or to your military commanders. It's to the Constitution of the United States, and that's
which is your oath. Your oath is directly to that.
Correct. Right. And so for me, that has always been my North Star, my guiding line. As long as what I'm doing is supported in the Constitution and is not immoral and unethical or illegal as it pertains to orders given to me per the Constitution, which is why we've always had that no fail line. The law is above everybody. Nobody's above the law, regardless of rank, status, or position. That's always been my guiding line. I feel that whoever did, if it was a police officer in this case that leaked this stuff, might have taken a look at it and felt like, just from the outside looking in, I just want to cash my statements, right, and put a fence around it.
Right, you have no insider
I have
knowledge.
none.
This isn't about that.
Right.
This is
But
simply a guess.
It would seem to me that they looked at it and they felt like the orders that were being given to them pursuant to these matters were unethical, possibly illegal, and immoral, and possibly they felt like they broke the First Amendment of the Constitution, saying that there's a right to free speech. There's certainly a right for the press in that First Amendment.
Mm-hmm.
So, but to capstone and answer your question, for me, it's always been the Constitution of the United States. Something that's written in black and white and does not change. And that's very, very important that the Constitution does not change. Right.
Yeah, and this is an issue that our peace officers and our military have to face. There's been many cases. UMCJ, it's called, I believe. Did I get that?
UCMJ, the Uniformed Code of Military Justice.
Many people have been prosecuted because there were illegal acts that they committed even in warfare. You have a code.
We do,
that you have
and
to go
by. A great example that people like to bring up is during Vietnam, right?
There are a lot of atrocities in Vietnam.
Right, there were people that were ordered to, or allegedly were ordered to commit war crimes, and their defense in court under the UCMJ was just that. I was ordered to do that, but many of them were still convicted because even underneath the UCMJ, you cannot be ordered to do something that is, I go back to those three things:
acts.
illegal, unethical, or immoral. And so I was ordered to is not a proper defense for that.
No. And speaking of Vietnam, a lot of guys, what ended up happening is they saw, if I get this correctly, the Viet Cong, and they saw how they fought, and oh man, nasty, malicious stuff. And after a while, not being able to strike back in the same way, you would have small units that would do things and then just psychologically take revenge because of the things that they had seen, because, it builds up. And so they did things like that. Well, then law came down on them.
Yeah.
Just because the other side does it doesn't mean that you get to revenge and do that or worse atrocities back at them.
Right.
It's
I would love to talk about this all day too, because
war's a nasty business.
Yeah, I love military history, but unfortunately, we got to move along. I got more stories here for you. So this one broke 2 days ago. All right, here we go. From the New York Post, U.S. lawyer caught gunning down climate protesters in Panama, allegedly delivered chilling warning.
Is that supposed to be a chilling warning?
For climate.
Climate?
Oh, man. I didn't even catch it. That's bravo, New York Post.
Oh,
all right.
It was chilling.
So this guy's
good.
name is Kenneth Darlington, for anybody that wants to go out and look this story up to watch the video of it. But pretty wild. Climate protesters cut off a highway leading into and out of Panama City, most densely populated city in Panama. They cut off traffic for several hours.
Capital, isn't it?
I believe so. Somebody, if we get that one wrong, feel free, light us up.
Yeah.
All right. So
please.
Anyway, this guy is a dual citizen, Panamanian American citizen. He's a lawyer. He's 77 years old. He exited his vehicle. He approached the climate protesters. There's the video is
first.
The video is he's reaching that age of like, don't give a care anymore. I've spent all my cares, which.
Remember that talk that we had when you were, and I told you about old dogs.
Yeah.
Don't mess with old dogs.
Straight up. So anyway, he approaches the climate protesters. In the video, you can't hear what he's saying. I'm not going to play the video for you guys.
Right.
You can go out and look it up yourself if you like, which is why I dropped his name. But he approaches the climate protesters. You can see him gesturing for them to get out of the way. He reaches in his waistband. He pulls out a pistol. He brandishes it. He starts using it to point at people. And again, gestures with the pistol where they should be moving off the road. None of them move. And then he opens fire and he kills 2 of them on camera. And just, and shoots them. And there's a photo that's rocketing around the internet right now of this guy right after he's pulled the trigger, and you can see a casing that's flipping up by his face, exiting the pistol. But the action pose of the photo is pretty cool, just from a mechanic standpoint. But what I found to be more disturbing is the look on the man's face as he just pulled the trigger and engaged another human being. And it is just the coldest, most stoic expression that I've ever seen on a man. If there's any emotion in his face whatsoever, it's just as if he's like, I have decided. It's just,
I was just getting ready to ask you,
resolved.
What's the psychology? Okay, what's the psychology? Okay, I've always, and I'm sure I had this talk with you when you were younger, and that is, when things start escalating, do you want to take it? This is the psychology. Do you want to take it up to this level because each person keeps going this way and this way? And he automatically took it up here. Here's the other level. He took it up here, way higher. It wasn't just a level over. He took it up here. Okay. And they matched him. Where's he going to go after you brandish that weapon? What's the next logical step? Right. I mean, you don't brandish a weapon unless
you're willing to use it.
You intend to use it. You brandish it, you don't intend to use it, you lose all power.
Correct.
So he brandishes it, it does nothing. There's only one step left.
Yeah.
Well, there could have been one more step. I was waiting for him to at least fire it in the air or possibly shoot close to them at the ground. I'm not afraid to use it. Bam. Next one will be in you. But he didn't go there.
No, he took that escalation of force to the end of the tracks.
Yeah. So where do you go with it? And so when you talk about that look on his face, that just means in his mind, he went there.
I think this story is also pointing out just how over it people are. I mean, like, people are sick and tired of watching the rule of law being bent to one side, watching one group of people that have a certain political persuasion being able to get away with doing whatever they want. And now you're starting to see the logical outcome of, well, if those that are in charge of providing the governance are not going to govern, then who does it fall to start governing? And so I think that you're going to see, I'm not talking about violence when I say this, but I think you're going to start seeing escalation. I'm not going to talk about lethal force necessarily, is what I should say. But you are going to start seeing that escalation in other areas besides just these climate protesters, because people are sick and tired. And I think that this to me is a canary in the coal mine, my man. I agree. That's what I have to say about this story. It was very fascinating to me.
Just to wrap it up, this thought crossed my mind. If he would have actually used the vehicle to move them, he would have legitimately more of a case to defend himself and say, they were illegally on the road. I gave them opportunity to get off of the road. And if he ends up hitting someone because they were on the road and they died, I mean, we all know we have laws about pedestrians on streets. They're to cross at a certain spot and so forth. There are certain streets where pedestrians do not have right of way. Okay. So they wouldn't have been protected. But to pull out a gun in front of a camera.
And like I said, man, that
a lawyer, a lawyer.
Yes. And that's gotta be, when I said his face looked resolved, like, that dude had already,
he made up his mind.
Yeah. And being that he is a lawyer, I mean, he's got to know like the logical outcome of what he was just doing. And to me, it was very, like, you could tell that it was the decisions of him. This man was going, this is my final act as a free person. Like,
I would not be surprised if he
tell.
has some form of malady or disease that he is expecting to lose his life in a short period of time. I wouldn't be surprised.
It wouldn't surprise me at all. All right, I got one final story for you, and this one, when I said the number one word of the week is surprised, to me,
this is the big
this
surprise?
one was the one right here. So we're going
over that last one?
Yes. So we're going over to Politico. Israel berates New York Times, CNN, Reuters. Did I say it right this time?
Yep,
Reuters and AP over Hamas attack. Photographers. So this story is absolutely wild. Israel.
I just was watching a thing on this story just before I came in.
So I'm tracking upwards of at least 4 photographers that were sending back near real-time images from the events on October 7th.
Yeah.
And Israel is alleging that these individuals had prior knowledge of the Hamas attacks on October 7th because of and that these photojournalists, self-proclaimed, were not only there in a journalistic capacity, but were actually aiding and abetting Hamas and then taking the photographs while they were there. At least one of them was videotaped on the back of one of those little motorcycles that they zip around on over there. They're closer to mopeds, holding a grenade in his hand on the way toward the border.
One of them is pictured with the Hamas leader giving him a kiss.
Yes.
On that day.
So now this to me, it's so wild. I'm going to start with the subtopic of journalistic malpractice. Dan Bongino made a very, very good point that, journalists, like, their job is to be up where the action is, and that's how we get the information, near real-time information for these events that take place. However, and this is his quote, there's a big difference using 9/11 as an example from being at ground zero, watching the buildings come down and photographing the planes as they're impacting the buildings, and being on the plane helping the individuals take over a plane so that you could be there to capture, like, what's happening in real time. That was the example that he made. Maybe a little bit on the hyperbolic side, but I think the point stands. There's a big difference in getting caught up in the violence and looking around, and you're like, I'm taking pictures of all this crazy stuff that's happening, and I got my press pass, and knowing that something's going to happen. Oh, you guys are going to break into such and such a place at this time. Yeah, I'll meet you there so that I can photograph it. So those are two very, very different things.
Okay, I'm going to throw a little monkey wrench at you here. Are you ready for this?
Yeah, go for it.
You're applying an American journalist point of view.
That is very fair. Underneath the First Amendment right of the press. Yes.
Yeah, First Amendment, you're putting it under a U.S. Constitution understanding of the press and how it works for us, so much so that it's written into our Constitution, and our press, we have a great need for it to supply truthful information to our culture.
They're supposed to be the sheepdogs of democracy.
So we put it into the Constitution. Yeah, supposedly. So we put it into the Constitution. These aren't Americans.
Correct.
They're obviously pro-Hamas, or Hamas would have never had called them to say, hey.
Allegedly.
That picture.
Allegedly.
I'm sorry. That's not allegedly.
Well, he was there.
That picture, he was there, and he's getting smoochy from the head of Hamas. Okay, which means that according to their culture, they're brothers.
Yeah,
that's the point of the kiss. We're brothers, And so no, so I don't think when Dan Bongino says that. By the way, I did a good thing earlier today. I called him John
John
Bino.
B.
I was like, I got to remember to tell Chris that John Bino. Now I've got it messed up for you. You're not going to be able to say his name.
I'm not even
right.
going to try to again because I'll mess it up too. Now you planted that seed.
Anyway, so I get it. We would like to say all journalists, but not every journalist is from our country is going to obey or run by our ethics. So to expect them to, I think, is a little out of character for him to characterize that and say that. I mean, they're pro Hamas. They're there in my mind. They were. I mean, I think they're scum because of it. But in their mind, they're there to photojournal the history of this Hamas strike against Israel. That was their purpose. That was their point.
No, absolutely. But then layering back on top of what you were saying, that's the reason that Israel is pushing back on those four Reuters, AP, CNN, and New York Times because, hey, those are American news organizations. And so they are absolutely should be held to journalistic ethics.
Right. So they produce the pictures that these photojournalists take and pay them for them. And that's how they get their money. So I find this rather interesting. I don't know if you've heard this, but CNN and MSNBC, the journalist that was getting smoochy from the head of Hamas,
right.
CNN and MSNBC have already terminated their relationship with him.
Yes. Well, because
now,
they got caught, though.
But what does that say when CNN and MSNBC distance themselves from you?
No, absolutely. So
that speaks volumes.
I think the biggest takeaway from this story is however bad that you thought the legacy news media was, and however corrupt that you thought that they were, this absolutely proves unequivocally that they are far worse than you thought. These people will crawl into bed with anybody to make a quick buck and say what you want about Hamas. They have got their information operation game together. They had CNN and New York Times on speed dial, my man, sending those photos out immediately on top of their set narrative of what it was so that they could get ahead of it. It's the old, a lie makes its way around the world before the truth can put its pants on. That's because these people are shuttling the lies at the speed of electronics. So that, to me, that was the biggest takeaway. All right. This, without a doubt, proves the corruption of the legacy news media and reinforces why you owe it to yourself in the age. We're getting ready to go into AI, guys, the age of AI, where the computer is going to be able to move faster than the human brain can compute to keep up with it, to understand that you're being lied to. You're going to be lied to 10 times before you'll even be able to understand what's happening. All right. Things are getting ready to spin out of control. You owe it to yourself to do your own research, to develop trusted sources, to learn how to go out, vet everything, and prove the veracity of what you're being seen. I'm going to leave you with something that old Grandpa Hambrock used to say, God rest his soul. All right. Don't believe anything you hear and only half of what you see. And that half, that 50% is starting to go down too. So that's what I want to leave you guys with this week. Those are the headlines on who's who and what's new. I hope you guys are enjoying the longer form episode format that we're trying out this week. If you got anything that you want to comment below on the stories, if we messed everything up, if you want to provide more context, you feel free to get down in there and beat us up with everything that you're worth. We read every single comment that comes with the territory, because we're small potatoes here. We have to. I am the public relations arm of all of this that happens.
And chief editor.
Yeah, you're looking at it, guys.
And chief editor.
All right. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. Please make sure that you're giving the video a like. Make sure that you subscribe. Make sure that you're following. Help us defeat the algorithms by sharing the video with a friend. And make sure that you're sticking around, because coming up next is to keep the main thing. We're going to be talking about Bible's biggest screw-ups. Talking about Eli and how not to high priest. We'll see you guys over there.
See you there.
All right, guys, we are going to keep the train moving. We're going to roll right into the keeping the main thing. And for that segment this week, we are continuing our talk on the Bible's biggest screw-ups. For those of you out there that might be just a little more astute, you might have kind of noticed the pattern that I've been following, but I've been trying to do an Old Testament figure and then a New Testament figure. Old Testament, New Testament. And last week we talked about Judas Iscariot, Judas the traitor. It's a New Testament figure. So this week we are diving back into the Old Testament, and we are going to be talking about the high priest Eli.
Yes.
I've always loved that name, by the way. I thought Eli is always a cool name.
Yeah, and once you get to know the character, it's not a cool name. Not at all.
Yeah, and we are going to be talking about how, as our theme of this Bible study implies, this is a screw-up of the Bible. So please, Pastor Eric, take us through our study of the character Eli and how not to high priest.
Well, Eli, first of all, that means that he is born into a family of high priests. That's how in the Old Testament you were able to be a priest in Israel. And by the way, that goes all the way down to today. If you are directly one of the sons of Aaron, you get to be high priest in the line of the priests that work the temple. If you are in and Aaron was in the tribe of Levi, and if you're in the tribe of Levi, you get to work in the temple in some way, shape, or form, even if you're not from the tribe of Aaron. But the tribe of Aaron, you have to, or not tribe, the family of Aaron, out of the tribe of Levi. That's where the priesthood comes from, which, by the way, is being reinstituted as we speak, and that family line is being found, and they have a school for a priest school for them, so that they are training the priest right now. So all you have to do, if you're kind of interested in that and you want to find out what that's all about, just go to templeinstitute.com. I believe it's the templeinstitute.com, and you can look all that stuff up. And there's actually a lot of stuff going on there right now about getting the temple all back together.
We talked about that during our "Is This the End of Days?" episode. I'll leave a link to that in the description below this video if you guys want to go back and check out that video. We talked about this very thing.
So Eli comes from this family, and by virtue of his family relationship, that is how he gets into the priesthood. And so he's doing his job. He's being a priest, and we find out through one of the descriptions about him that he is old, going blind, and fat. Okay. So when we open up the book of First Samuel and we start finding out about Eli, and one of the other things that we find out is that his sons, if you read this out of the NLT, I kind of like the way that they do it. It says, "Now Eli's sons were scoundrels." That is the exact word that it uses in the NLT. That's the New Living Translation.
I'll switch my Bible Gateway over to the NLT for when we get over there.
Okay. Yeah, that's in chapter 3, I think, 2 or 3. And so uh we start off the story of First Samuel about his mom, Samuel's mom. She wants to have a son. She can't have any. She goes and she prays. She asks God for a son, and it shows that Eli tells her that God's heard her prayers. Go away. So we kind of get a picture of Eli of being somewhat of a godly man, or at least knowing what godly things are. Okay. And then we all of a sudden are told a picture about him. And in fact, this picture that we get is that his sons, as they say, Hophni and Phineas are their names, are scoundrels. They are literally stealing sacrifices that belong to God, things that are supposed to be burnt on the altar, are they're stealing them. Now, back in that day, when somebody would bring sacrifices to God, it was meant that the priests were to get part of the sacrifices. That was in there. God, there's only one sacrifice, and that's called a sin offering. Is all of it to go to God? But other than that, when there be peace offerings, meal offerings, blood sacrifices for other types of sins and things like that, a portion of everything went to the priests. That's the way that God had instituted it, and so forth. And so the priests would be taken care of out of that. But Hophni and Phineas, when they would look down there and they would see the animals that were being brought, if they decided they wanted something more, they just took it, even though it belonged to God. In fact, there's a portion of the scripture in there where it says people would say, but the fat is to be burnt. That is my offering to the Lord. And they didn't care, and they would just go ahead and take and steal what belonged to God.
That can I interject for just a second?
Please.
So that really does something in my heart. I get so angry because the treachery of that runs a lot deeper than just them stealing like the sacrifice. They're also stealing not the innocence, that's not what I want to say, but like imagine a generation that's growing up at the time, and like you're a young kid and you're going to the temple to do the thing that God ordered you to do and to bring your sacrifice, and you're doing it, and then you see the priest act in such a way that completely degrades and tears down what your view of the holy things of God are. And like, if the man of God doesn't even treat this with reverence or respect, then why should I treat any of this with reverence or respect? You know what I mean? So
that's not it. That's not it. They're being taught that is the level of respect.
That's what I'm trying to communicate.
They don't know any higher.
Right.
And so all of a sudden, holiness, godliness, righteousness, you see how I'm coming down here.
Right.
All that is down here because as a younger person, you expect that person to be doing right by God, and that's what you see. Right. And that's all the higher that it is. You don't know that there's something higher.
Right. And we see the same thing in churches today. People are going into church and
nothing new under the sun.
People that are supposed to be presenting the name of God, priests and pastors, fathers, you used to wear almost like a uniform, right? The stole. I think Catholic priests are still stoled. Am I correct on that? You guys let me know in the comments. We're not Catholic, but I believe that's the
They at least have the collar.
Right.
Some are in coat and jacket, but there's at least the collar that goes along with it.
Right.
There's still priestly garments when they're in the pulpit,
Right, and you're
in church on
sure,
Sunday.
and you will represent the name of God, and people are going into churches today, and they're seeing that, and they are just so easily led astray, and I not even like I'm angry at the so-called church leaders because they know that they have that power and that sway over people because people expect to be closer to God by I'm coming to church to be closer to God, to learn about God from you, and then I'm taking the information that you're giving me and I'm reasonably expecting that you're giving me the truth from what I'm seeing in the Bible or from what you're reading in the Bible. I'm expecting that you're interpreting the scripture to me to help me be closer to God. And like when they don't, and when pastors and religious leaders utilize the word of God and the trappings of Christianity or religion in order to do nothing but enrich themselves, they are not just stealing physical things from people, they are stealing people's souls. It
Yes,
is
yes.
that
So
is
there's a
that is evil.
there's a New
That
Testament. Well, there's a New Testament equivalent to this, and Jesus does it himself. He goes into the temple. Now, he does it twice, but the one that comes to my mind is the one just before his crucifixion. It's the week of his crucifixion. He does this, what we call Passion Week, and he goes into the temple, and we say he drives out the money changers. Okay, we try to make it simple and easy, but that's not it. And there's this main thing that he says when he drives them out. He says, this, my house should be called a house of prayer, but you have turned it into a den of thieves. Okay. So we kind of got to have to go over why he makes that statement. You see, the whole point of a sacrifice is for you to take an animal, and that animal has to be without blemish. Doesn't matter if you're talking about a dove. There were some sacrifices that you could take a dove. There were some sacrifices where you took in wine, oil, and meal. That's referred to as a peace offering, and it goes directly. You're giving it for the priest. Those are.
and
But
just
some
just
is still offered on the altar. Go ahead.
I just wanted to clarify what we're talking about for anybody that might be unfamiliar. This is under the Old Testament Levitical law that God ordered his people to operate under prior to Jesus coming and giving his life on the cross, who became the final sacrifice for all of our sins, is what we believe in Christianity. But I just wanted to clarify the point of, in
Good
case
deal.
somebody's confused. But why are we talking about sacrifices? Wait, we're supposed to be killing animals and whatnot? Well, back then,
Yeah.
yes.
Back then, that was the law of God, and so then there were sin offerings, and sin offerings, the blood went out over it, and then certain parts of the animal did, and a lot of it went to the priests, and then there was other types of offerings that either had a lamb, but in any of those cases, you took care of all of those things, and you brought it in and you gave God your best that you had. You would see to that animal that it was perfect. You would bring the best of your meal, oil, olive oil, wine, whatever it was. It was the best that you had, and you brought it in because God, here it is. This is going to cover for my sin. This is going to pay for my family. So I'm giving you my best because I want you, oh God, to receive my offering for my sins, or for my joy, or for the peace that I'm praying for upon my house. All those things. And so you bring God your best. By the time Jesus comes around, what happens is that there's all kinds of stores and everything that's set up around the temple area where they would do sacrifices. And if you didn't have it, you could go and buy the animal and then take the animal up and have the sacrifice for you. And there you go. It's done. Your heart, you didn't have anything in it. You didn't put your heart in it. You didn't love that animal. You didn't love the oil, the meal. You didn't put your hands to the laborers to make that thing happen. You went and you paid your money and you got what it was from the people outside, and then you offered it at the temple, and there you go. And not only that, but the people in the temple themselves was getting a kickback from, they were paying for spots.
Nothing,
And they were
nothing
getting
new under the sun.
nothing new
Man.
under the sun, so that you could get the best spot, so that you could sell your animals. And that's how the priests were making their money, off of selling those spots, so the people would get the best spots. And so Jesus walked in and he saw this. There was no heart in the sacrifice. What Eli was doing with his sons, the priests were doing at the time of Jesus. The same thing in the temple. The holiness rose no higher than this, and that's what they were teaching the people. In fact, it had become commonplace.
Well, yeah, commonplace. That's exactly where my mind was just going with that, because, you know, in Jesus protecting the temple of God and throwing the money changers out, he wasn't just saying like I'm protecting the reverence for the temple and the sacrifice process, but in another way too, I see it as, you know, that whole thing that you just described for us. When I care for the animal and I lovingly, I bathe it, I feed it, I make sure that this animal represents me before God and is going to go and take my sin. That is a huge labor of love. You go to the temple and you throw a couple coins on the counter and pick up an animal. Like, you are literally telling God, like, my soul is worth a couple coins. I guess, right? A couple coins, or however much that you're willing to pay for it, plus the 30 seconds that it takes you to complete that transaction. And Jesus, in protecting the temple, is not just saying that the temple is worth being revered and the process is worth being revered, but your soul is worth more than that, and it requires the contriteness of heart and the what's the word I'm looking for? It requires great action and sacrifice of yourself to go into this thing that is to be the sacrifice for you.
Depth of compassion.
Yeah.
Is that what you're looking for? I mean, you got skin in the game.
That's the whole idea. What I'm trying to
soul in the game.
Right.
Maybe that's a better word.
That's what I'm trying to point out.
And of course, and so then
hard
this,
work.
and you and I have talked about this before. That sets up the great picture. And of course the meaning of, you've turned it into a den of thieves. You're not robbing people of money. You're robbing people of a spiritual experience. Yeah. That's what you're robbing people of. And it just made Jesus so ferocious. And this is the part you and I have talked about before. You know, you want to see Jesus get emotional? This made him incredibly emotional. We say to each other, you and I, we come up with these vignettes of what it looked like.
Yeah.
Right. It's not Jesus. Oh, guys, I'm so disappointed. Oh, guys, would you please leave the temple? You've upset me. No, we're talking Jesus went Hulk.
Dude, he drove out the entire, we're probably talking like hundreds of people that are in this court area, and he's picking people up, throwing them. He's got a whip. He's by the nape of the neck. He's just tossing tables. I mean, I'm telling you, and he roared like such a lion that people ran out of there. One man. Yeah. Hundreds of people. Incredible.
Absolutely. And it wasn't going to be by any timid fashion at all.
That's why when all you progressive Christians tell me that we're supposed to be like Jesus and be nice to people, I'll meet you halfway. I'll be like Jesus. I'm about to flip some temple tables up in here.
I'm telling you, he roared. So now back to Eli. This is where so that's our New Testament equivalent of the same thing. And when we see Jesus get in on it, what did it do to Jesus's heart? I mean, he clears out the temple. So God takes a look at Eli and he sees what he done. So there's two people that go to Eli. Number one, we're told a man of God. That's all that it says. And he says, so basically he's a prophet, and God speaks through this prophet, and he tells him that you're going to die in your old age and your sons are going to die. End of chapter 3. We go into chapter 4. It starts telling us about end of chapter 2, I guess. And then we're going to go into chapter 3, and we learn that God starts calling Samuel. And in calling Samuel, when Samuel finally answers him, God tells him this little thing. He says what he is going to do to Eli and his sons.
So just to be clear, his screw up, since we're talking about the greatest scripts in the Bible, his screw up was the fact that he, in his old age, let his sons completely run roughshod over him, degrade the temple, strip the reverence out of the sacrifice process.
And he stood by and did nothing.
So his sin is not necessarily a positive act that he committed, like a thing that he went and did. His sin is a sin of apathy and omission, where he just stood by.
Yeah, theologically, what you're talking about is the difference between the sins of commission, that's when you do something with your hands against the known law of God, versus the sin of omission, that means that you should have done something, but you didn't.
I just want to point out that, and the reason I wanted to hold a magnifying glass over that is because we got a lot of men in this country right now that I'm talking to. And if this hits you in the feel bads, then I'm saying it in all love. But for a man to know to do good and do it not, to him, it is sin. If you know that you're supposed to be doing something, God's calling you to do something, which we are all called to love our families, to lead our children, to be leaders in our communities to some aspect, at some
to live
level.
Lives of integrity.
And you are not, and you are standing by and letting evil men run roughshod, then I'm just saying, look at Eli here. Like,
yeah, look at Eli, because that's what he was. See, as priest, he had one job: to take care of God's holy temple and to keep it holy. To take care of God's holy temple and keep it holy. He turned his boys loose, and he didn't do anything about it. He didn't keep God's temple. That's the job of a priest. That's the job of a pastor. He has a church that he is supposed to run. His job is to see to the sheep in ways of righteousness. When he breaks down and does not keep the righteousness of God in the house of God, he is a failure. He doesn't have to be a great preacher. He doesn't have to be a healer. He doesn't have to be know how. Let me throw a big word at you. He doesn't have to know eschatology. That's not his job. His job is to take care of the sheep and lead them in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. That's our job, is to feed the sheep and lead the sheep for the great shepherd. We're the hirelings. That's what he's left us to do. Eli's the priest. That's what he is left to do. He has a job over the house of God, and he is not seeing to it. So God sends along a man, tells him what he's going to do to Eli. God then calls Samuel. He's just a young boy, and he tells him what he's going to do to Eli. The very next morning, Eli, and it's kind of the way that the story goes, 3 times Samuel hears a voice that says, Samuel, Samuel. He gets up and he goes running to Eli, and he goes, yes, you called me? No, I didn't call you. So go lay down. Samuel.
Get out of here, kid. Back. You bother me.
Yeah. There you go, W.C. Fields. And he goes back. It happens 3 times. And finally, Eli says, next time, tell the voice, I'm your servant. I'm listening. And he does. And that's when God speaks to Samuel and tells him what he's going to do to Eli's family. Here's the catch. The very next morning, Eli gets up and he says, what did that voice tell you, and you tell me everything that voice tells you, or so help me, I will pray that God will destroy you. Trying to scare the boy.
What's the matter, Eli? Does God not talk to you anymore? Just
Just saying, aren't you?
he
And
sounds really thirsty, right?
yeah.
Sounds like a man that
Now somebody's already
misses
told
when
him.
God used to talk to him.
Yeah.
Oh, having a camera issue here. You just keep rolling along. I'm going to try and fix this.
Okay. And so, yeah, I'm going to need you here in just a second, because we're getting ready to do the scripture part, because you see, that's when Samuel tells him everything. And it's Eli's response that is absolutely mind-boggling. Absolutely mind-boggling. So you got this situation where this guy tells Eli that God's going to destroy you. Okay, one person comes by and says God told him that God's going to destroy me and my family because of my boy's sins. And I'm not doing anything about it. Okay, maybe I believe you, maybe I don't believe you. I don't, do I know who you are? Why would I be listening to you? But all of a sudden, you just went through this young boy being called by God, and you yourself knows that it was the voice of God calling him, because you gave him the words to say, "Here I am, Lord, your servant is listening.
Aha, I'm
Speak."
back.
Yeah.
Sorry about that, guys.
And
Technical difficulties.
and you hear that so much, you know that it was God talking to him. So the very next morning, you make him swear to tell you the truth and everything that voice tells you. And it's Eli's response that just absolutely blows me away. So if you have that for me, 1 Samuel chapter 3, I believe it is. Can you call up the scripture that I gave you?
Yeah, I got you. All right. So moving over to our Bible Gateway right here, guys. This is 1 Samuel chapter 3, beginning in verse 17. And Eli said, "What was it that he told you? Do not hide it from me. May God do so to you and more also if you hide anything from me, all that he told you." So Samuel told him, excuse me, now you're belching, you got me belching. So
Yeah, I know.
Samuel told him everything and hid nothing from him. And he said, "It is the Lord. Let him do what seems good to him."
Can you believe that? I mean, I don't, for our listeners, just, I want you to catch this really quick. If hell and damnation and your destruction was told to you, would you not stop and cry out and say, "Oh God, I'm sorry. Be merciful to me. Forgive me"?
I guess all I have is some speculation, but is this a man that you think is accepting? Yep, I messed up. I guess the Lord is like, I'm getting what I deserve. Is that what we're seeing? Or are we seeing a man that loves his sons too much to turn from what he's doing now? Is this like a sunk cost fallacy? That he knows he doesn't have the strength to rein his sons in or the will to do so? Or is this a man that maybe has just given up entirely?
Well,
is there too much
now
guilt and shame for him to turn around now?
We're not told what this comes out of. We're not given that.
Right.
So
that was all speculation.
We have to leave it at speculation. But here's the facts. He has let his sons go for so long and do this for so long that God is condemning him for his sons, and he's not going to go do anything about it.
So wrap the story up for us.
What
happens? Is there a redemption arc in this one? What ends up transpiring and taking place?
So his sons do what literally they take the Ark of the Covenant and they go out with it thinking, well, you know what? God's going to work on our behalf. Now, we talked about arrogance before. What was our segment? We just talked about arrogance.
The Dunning-Kruger effect, competence over
This
confidence.
this is this is it.
Yeah.
This is
I
it.
didn't even plan for that.
No,
I
and
didn't.
remember
Yeah.
how we ended that segment is the higher the arrogance,
Yeah.
the greater the fall.
Right.
Okay. And so, yeah, they go, oh, you know what has happened in times past? We take the ark out and God fights our battles for us. God doesn't fight battles for sinful people.
There's that one guy in the back. Hey,
Hello.
my dad told me the reason we used to take the ark out was because that's when God told us to do that. Get that guy out of here.
Yeah, he's gone.
Yeah.
He's gone. No, we can't have negativity here.
Yeah.
That's not going to work.
Yeah.
Anyway, and so they do, and
Bigot.
they're they're both killed in this battle. The Ark of the Covenant is stolen away from the nation of Israel, which is the physical representation of God, is the Ark of the Covenant, and the runner. Who the herald that was there to watch it goes running back into the city. And when he comes from a far way, Eli is sitting at the gate for that entrance, and he's blind, and he's fat, and he's sitting on a log outside of the gate, and he says, "Tell me what has happened." And the guy gives him the news and says that your sons were killed, the ark was taken. And when he says that the ark was taken, Eli was so shocked he fell backwards off of the log he was sitting on and broke his neck. In the meantime, the word got to Phinehas's, I believe it's Phinehas's wife, who was pregnant with a child, and she went into labor, hard labor, and the child died in labor because part of the prophecy was that the family would totally be wiped out. And it was in one fell swoop, just as the Lord had said. And if anybody wants to see something right now, you can go on YouTube and go to look at the digs that are going on.
Well, don't go
Shiloh.
right now. Stay here.
Don't go right now.
Finish
There's one
this,
thing.
and then
I want to tell you
the next.
Yeah, do this after you get done with here.
There you go.
But they have been able to uncover the gate that is to the north road that leads out to where those battles were. And so literally it would have been the gate that Eli was sitting at when he got the news. That has been excavated. It has been found. It is a real place that exists.
I love biblical archaeology, and the more that they dig, the more that they're just proving the veracity of the scriptures. It so pumps me up. So I have one more question for you. What would be the takeaway for us this week? What's your big, if people don't remember anything else about this one, about the story, what would be the big take home?
God is slow to anger, quick to forgive. There is, if you seek his face, there is always forgiveness. But Eli, and I believe you hit the nail on the head with the idea that he just didn't have it to deal with his sons, and so he gave up doing anything because he wasn't going to deal with it.
And I'm gonna jump in right here because you're having some audio problems that is making you hard to understand. But I'm gonna repeat that for anybody that didn't catch it. The idea that Eli's sin was just that, was a sin of omission. He stood by and he didn't have the will or the strength to stop his sons from what they were doing. Even when God confronted him with his judgment, he still didn't have the will to step up and do what God asked him to do. And I think that is, especially for us as men, is a huge just red flag, man. You look at, if you're like me and you're looking at your country right now and you're looking at your community and you're wondering just how we got here, it's because we've done this. A lot of us have just stood by and done nothing, and we are starting to pay for it. So unlike Eli, who just was like, well, I guess the Lord is going to, his wrath is coming. Like, we still have time, guys. Repent. Give your hearts to God. Love your families. Lead your children. Step up. Be leaders in your community like God has called us to do. And let's start turning this thing around. We're the leaders that we've been waiting for.
Yes.
Nobody's coming to bail us out of this.
No.
There's no QRF, man.
And back to the Kruger
Dunning-Kruger effect.
To the Dunning-Kruger effect. After the fall, it's the correction that happens as you saw that line going back up. That's the real crux of it. There's a similar story just one generation after Eli. His name is David. The same thing happens to him. And yet when he falls after his arrogance, he doesn't just say, that's it, I'm done, but rather he starts with repentance, and he gets back in there and realizes that God is his strength through all that, and he starts ascending back up into his walk. Yeah, there was a fall. Yeah. Eli would have had the same thing. I have to believe that if he would have fallen on his face and repented, that God would have heard his repentance, done something with Hophni and Phinehas, and moved on. Yeah. But he didn't. And so look at David and then look at Eli and realize there can be repentance, but it depends on your level of arrogance, I guess.
Oh, that's a great spot to leave it with. Hey, if you guys like the video, please make sure that you leave it a thumbs up. Get down in the comments. Let us know what you think. Feel free to disagree even. You're going to be wrong, but feel free to disagree even. No, we love it. Hey, just know that when we respond to you guys, that is actually me responding, and I read every single one of them. Make sure that you subscribe, that you follow. Help us defeat the algorithms by sharing this video with a friend. And hey, we will see you back here next week on the Common Freaking Sense podcast. Have a blessed week, guys. Go with God.
Take care.